The Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds.
Where am I?
On the Zone 105.9 and online at thezone1059.com.
Good morning. Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone ESPN, brought to you by Kessler Prime and the Renaissance. Steak, seafood, award-winning Elijah Craig bourbon. KesslerPrime.com to make a reservation. You can hit us up on our text line, 601-885-3776. And also Twitter X, at Bo Bounds. Thank you, Elon Musk, for saving the country. Key City Beer Caller Line, 601-707-3750. We welcome in Steve Robertson, genespage.com, 247 Sports. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Mississippi State 7-4. 4 losses to, pretty good to good teams, but that's not what Hail State baseball fans want to hear. They want to win games against good teams. Steve, what do you think they'll do in the starting rotation with the Saturday? I mean, I'm assuming Jacob Pruitt, but what do you think they'll do Saturday and Sunday starter?
Yeah, that's a good question. And, I think when you look at taking the emotion out of it and go back and look at what happened on Sunday, the State was 2-0 with Stone Simmons before Sunday. And then he has the one kind of come apart inning where he walks the first 2 hitters, and then you get a couple of ground balls. I think he got 3 ground balls in the inning and didn't get an out, And so I think that's something maybe you got to think about. But I think Saturday, I think maybe you got to go with Ryan McPherson, who I thought was outstanding and has been throughout the year. But if you look back, what's the story? What are the 2 big issues from the weekend? Well, you got a quality start on Friday. You won going away, right? You didn't get a quality start on Saturday, and you got a less than quality start on Sunday, and then you lose those games. I mean, you get in too big a hole, and against Power 5 competition, you can't spot anybody a lead. And I think when you look at what the bullpen did in Saturday and Sunday, you've got to really consider, you got to backfill behind those guys, obviously, right? I mean, because, if you start Ryan McPherson, you can't have Ryan McPherson come out of the bullpen. However, with what you saw from Dane Burns and Mekhi Grant, I think those guys perhaps need to pitch some more innings. But, we'll find out today what they're going to do against Southern Miss, and you've made that a much bigger ball game because of how the weekend went. I mean, it's already a big ball game because Southern Miss is a great team, right? But yeah, I mean, this team is that struggled to get quality starts over the weekend and then couldn't get the big hit late. I think if you look at all 3 games last week that State lost, you had the tying and or go-ahead run on base in the ninth, all 3 games, and you couldn't get the big hit. That's something that's got to change. That's what Mississippi State baseball's kind of been built on, is being that team that just won't lose in the ninth. And they always find a way to get it done, and last week they didn't. So it's a new week this week, and they really need a 4-0 week.
Okay, so you think McPherson, possibly Pruitt, could start in the next week or 2?
Yeah, I think some of it's got to boil down to what happens. What do you do tomorrow, right? I mean, do you throw?
Do you go with Pruitt or do you hold him to the weekend?
Well, I think you're going to win this weekend regardless. But I think you've got to make this Southern Miss game priority. Just from an RPI standpoint, and the fact too that you need to win some games, and maybe Pruitt goes on Wednesday, and then you can throw him next weekend against Texas. I guess we'll see, but. I trust Justin Parker. Of all the people on the Mississippi State campus, I probably trust he and Chris Jans the most, as far as guys that are going to formulate a good plan to go out there and get you a win. And so, the Carson Ligon thing is a little bit interesting, because, we go to every scrimmage and his last 2 outings in the spring, prior to the season, were kind of what you've seen, where he kind of gets off to a slow start and then kind of settles. On Saturday, it was just both innings were, difficult. But that's the one thing I look at and say, what is it that he sees, that feels like, hey, this is a guy that I can mold into a weekend guy. I mean, the results just haven't been there, right? I mean, the reality of it is that nobody's bigger than the program, and nobody's guaranteed anything.
I'm surprised Justin Parker went with Carson Ligon. I really am. I'm surprised. And I'm surprised it happened in the first place, and then I'm surprised it happened as long as it has, just because of the expectations for the program. Steve Robertson, genespage.com. He goes to every game. He's got great Hail State baseball content on 247 Sports, genespage.com. Who needs to play more in the lineup, Steve?
Well, I really like Reed Stallman, and I have really throughout the fall and the spring. When State, added him out of the portal, some people were a little concerned because, the batting average last year wasn't great. I mean, the numbers were good. I mean, his home run numbers were good. His RBI numbers, his relation to at bats was really good. They really felt like this was a guy that was on the verge of a breakout year, and I think the early returns kind of reveal that too. But I think he's a guy that needs to get more ABs. I think maybe initially you thought, well, we'll just platoon him and Downs out in left. I think you got to find a way to get him in there. He did some damage over the weekend, and a lot of people in the National College Baseball media that were there were asking me, hey, what's the deal with the Stallman kid? That first home run he hit on Saturday or Sunday was, an upper deck shot, at the Astros ballpark. And that's not a wall scraper by any stretch of the imagination. But, he's a guy that is kind of acclimated well. I think he probably needs a few more ABs. And Aaron Downs doing some good things, too. And so you've got the pieces there. I mean, that's the thing. I think when I look back at that, you've got runners at second and third with one out in the ninth against Arizona. I mean, sometimes just a routine fly ball to right gets the job done, and State struggled to do that. So they got to find that guy, right? You got to find that guy that is going to be able to be a game wrecker for you in the ninth. And unfortunately, last week they weren't able to see a guy emerge and do that.
Steve Robertson on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. This interview brought to you by two brothers, an older brother in Starkville, Mississippi, Bar and Grill and Bistro. Check them out. I guess today with Texas in town, or tomorrow, as Steve mentioned, the Southern Miss game, and we did earlier too, was moved to tomorrow because of potential weather. How concerned should Mississippi State fans be? Very concerned in the 7-4 start?
Well, I'm concerned, but I'm not very concerned, and I'm not panicking by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, you don't need to drop these midweeks. Granted, you went out and scheduled a little bit better in the midweek, but the reality of it is they're like one pitch or one hit away, in these games. It'd be different if they were getting embarrassed or anything, and I thought the Oklahoma State game got away from them a little bit, and then they rallied to come back. But you can't keep digging yourself a hole, and that's kind of where I think Justin Parker emerges here. Justin Parker's got to get this weekend rotation where it needs to be. And again, I think when you look at what McPherson did, and Mike Nemeth and I talked about that the weekend before, against Missouri State, when Ligon was kind of up and down, you bring in McPherson, and Nemo's like, hey, McPherson kid's auditioning for the Saturday job right now. And I think you take the last two weekends and you've kind of paired McPherson up with Ligon, and McPherson's been the better of the two. I mean, the numbers don't lie. We all see the same thing. There's not some magic formula of this. You go out there and you don't give up base runners and you get outs, and you